Okay, let's get started. And remember, the Mega Million and the Powerball again has been held. So nobody had hit the jackpot. Mega Million is going up to 700 soon. The Powerball is going up to 400 million soon. So if you, God forbid, you hit both jackpot, you'll get over $1 billion of prize money before taxes. And someone's gonna hit that. They've been holding it for too long, and they might hold it close to 1 billion. And for that time being, Thanksgiving or Christmas is the time to pay those big money. And if someone hit the Mega Million, they might hold the Powerball for Christmas or Thanksgiving also. Don't rule out New York or California for hitting those jackpot. Don't rule it out, because California and New York might hit those jackpot again. Even New Jersey. Those are the 3 states I'm betting the jackpot to be hit, or Mega Million or Powerball. It's California, New Jersey, and New York. And let's talk about the patterns of the past draws. I've been tracking patterns now. Let's talk about patterns of the past draw. So using wavelength pattern to track Mega Million draws, okay? And the wavelength will help you track the Mega Million past draws, and it'll show you the pattern. So you can keep track of those patterns, and once you keep track of the pattern, you pick numbers and you use wavelength to signify your numbers. So if your wavelength is very different from the patterns of the past draws, then you know you're picking the wrong numbers. Maybe at least you're picking some of the wrong numbers or all of the wrong numbers, okay? And thanks for watching my channel. Please do donate. Subscribe. Share. Like my video. Donations are welcome by sending it to Google Wallet. You can follow me on Fope. Email me if you have any question regarding my videos. You can email me at the email address highlighted in blue. Use the closed captioning on this video. Remember, nothing is guaranteed and will ever be. I do private prediction. For private prediction, please donate to support my channel. You can donate through PayPal or Google Wallet, and please be sure to email me for any private predictions. Please win and let me help you win. Now here's the Lotto illustration from part 1 to part 8. The Lotto coaching. And remember, you can email me for all this part 1 to part 8 illustration for Lotto coaching. I will send you these all 8 parts. And here's the bullets. The bullets will describe the breakdown of the illustration part 1 to part 8. These are system from January to December. The reverse Dster system from January to December, the infinite reverse Dster interval system, infinite reverse Dster breakdown, the illustration part 2, Lotto matrix, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 using short-term and long-term frequency, illustration part 3, infinite Dster, reverse Dster using the co-Dster and co-Dster pair system, and illustration part 4 is the co-Dster system using pairs, trio, quadruplets. Illustration part 5, co-Dster pair system using the trios, quadruplet, and quintuplets. The Dster quadrant system using the x and y axis, using hot, cold, and neutral coordinates. And remember the illustration part 7, formatting your game matrix, creating winning pairs, trios, quadruplets, and even quintuplets. And you can look at how those pairs, trios, quadruplets, and quintuplets are formed. And finally, the lottery's illustration part 8, secret formula using the lottery matrix law of elimination, lottery matrix law of attraction, the matrix law of repetition, and the matrix law of opposite attraction. The lottery illustration part 9 has not yet been developed. But you can request all these by emailing me. I'll send you these all 8 parts of illustration, which will be considered part of prediction, and you can read the quadrant system and not use the x and y axis using negative coordinates. And you can also raffle for the illustration part 1 to part 7 for lottery coaching. First prize will be the whole package. Second prize will be the illustration one of those parts, and third prize will be 5 tickets of cash for life. If you win, those tickets are yours. And if you win on those tickets are also yours. So any money you want is yours, okay? And you might get lucky and hit the first prize or second prize of those tickets I sent you. There will be a deadline when when I announce the drawing for the raffle. If there's enough raffle, I will stop the raffle. Also, I can add more for prize, depends on how many people are in the raffle, and you can email me if you want to be in the raffle. Your raffle can hear real name or the name, raffle number, and the raffle date. Okay, now let's talk about the wavelength of each draws. Now, you can see this matrix. It's an interval of 5. So it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and 60. So an interval of 5. So that's the matrix. It goes from 1 to 70, but I don't have space, so I'm not gonna go from 1 to 70. So each bar going down represents 1 interval. So there's 60 intervals, and each of these 5 represents 5 intervals. 5 1 intervals. So it's 5 intervals, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, goes up to 60. And the other 65 to 70, from 60 to 65, 65 to 70 is not on this chart. So I'm only showing you up to 60. I don't have space for it. And let's start the wavelength. Let's see how it works. Now the winning number for 10, 12, 18 were 4, 24, 46, 61, and 70. I did not put in the Powerball. But as you can see, there are 4 even numbers. And the matrix starts at 4 and ends at 70. So let's look at the wavelength of each of this draw. Now here's the wavelength. The wavelength can go upward or downward first. Doesn't matter. Just a wavelength. And here's the wavelength. It's going downward from 4 down and then going up to 24. Right? And then going down to 46. Then go back up to 61. And then going back down to 70. That's the wavelength. And you can do it upside down also. And here's the wavelength for this draw. And you can see the gap between each wavelength. There's a gap between each wavelength. This gap is big. Gap. And that's wavelength for this draw. You can draw the wavelength out. If it helps you pick out the patterns. So let's look at the next winning number. The winning number for October 9th, 2018 were 20, 22, 39, 54, and 60. Also 4 even number. So 2 straight draw with at least 4 even number. So the matrix starts at 20 and ends at 60. They're high numbers. And let's look at the wavelength for this draw. Now the wavelength for this draw is very, very different from the first wavelength. It starts at, I'm going upward, it starts at 20, going down to 22, going back up to 39, then going back down to 54, and then going back up to 60. So this wavelength is inside the wavelength, inside the chart from 1 to 60. Okay? The previous wavelength, it went outside the 60 range. It went outside the 1 to 60 range. So this wavelength went in the 60 range. So it went up, down, and then back up to 60. So you see the gap in between these in the wavelength are small gaps and big gaps. So from 20 to 22, you can see the wavelength is very short. From 22 to 39, the wavelength is very big, and from 39 to 54, the wavelength is have a big gap also, and from 54 to 60, wavelength also have a small gap. Now let's look at the next draw. The winning number for October 5th was 27, 28, 32, 41, and 69. The matrix starts at 27 and ends at 69. So it went outside, again, the 60 range. And let's look at wavelength. Okay, so the wavelength from 27 to 28 going up and then going down a short period of time. Then from 28 to 30, it went down and then up. And then from 28 to 32 went up and then went down. And then from 32 to 41 it went let's go from 27 to 28 it went up and down. And from 28 to 32 it went down to up to 32. From 32 it went up down to 41, and then it went down to 69. So I'm going to correct myself. So that's the wavelength. It was big gap in between and a small gap. So what did we learn? We learned something good. Now let's look at one more wavelength. The wavelength for October 2nd was 2, 22, 29, 31, and 34. It's a low number matrix. It starts at 2 and ends at 34. And now let's look at the wavelength of this draw. It starts at 2. So it starts at 2, going up, and then down to 22, then going down and up to 29, and then go up and down to 31, and then go down and up to 34. This wavelength starts with a big wavelength, and then slowly decrease to short wavelengths. Okay? So it went from long wavelength and then short wavelength. So that's the pattern. Okay, the pattern, it went from long wavelength to short wavelengths. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the other draw. This one went from short wavelength to large wavelengths. Okay, so you can see the pattern from short wavelength to large wavelength. The other one was large wavelength to short wavelengths. And just to make sure you see this one also, it went from a short wavelength to large wavelength, then back to short wavelengths. So you have those kind of patterns. And then this one went from large wavelengths, continuously being large wavelengths. So that's all the pattern for the wavelength of each draw. And as you can see, what pattern are negative patterns that don't hold for these wavelengths? By that I mean patterns that have not occurred yet. So if your wavelength doesn't match any of these patterns, then you're picking your number wrong also. So your wavelength have to match at least some of these patterns. So what are the patterns that the wavelength won't match? Let's talk about the wavelength. So let's look again for this draw. The wavelength are all big patterns. Okay, that tend to happen when the number are at least a little bit apart, at least over 10 range apart from each number. That's possible. Therefore, you have big wavelengths. Now, when your number are not that big apart, then you have small wavelengths. So what are the wavelengths? The wavelength, when you have short wavelength to short wavelength to short wavelength to short wavelength, then you know you're picking the wrong numbers. So that's one of the patterns that didn't exist for these patterns. It's going from short wavelength to short wavelength, down back to short wavelength, going back up to short wavelength. Those are not your patterns. But having big wavelength and going back down to big wavelength, then going back up to big wavelength, and then going back down to big wavelength is a pattern. But yes, if your numbers picking are short wavelength, it going up, then back down to short wavelength, then going up to short wavelength, and then going back down to short wavelength, then that pattern doesn't exist for the pattern of these draws. So you might want to say that you're picking your numbers wrong. And let's give you another example. Now, the wavelength over here starts at very, very far from the beginning. So, right? So a wave might come to you from the beach, or it might not come to you at the beach. It might not even be close to where you're sitting. Let's go back to the last wavelength, and this is the last wavelength, and you can see this wavelength, it starts at the beginning but it ends quick. It doesn't go all the way to the end. So some wavelength starts at the beginning and go all the way to the end. So let's show you one of the pattern. The other pattern is, you see it? This pattern is the only pattern that starts at the beginning and end all the way at the end. So another possible situation you want to pick is, out of those patterns, you can see only one draw contains a wavelength that starts from the beginning and ends at the end. So by that I mean, let's say your other picks was 3 and 69 or 2 and 68. Will fall into this pattern. So no pattern, not all pattern are starting from beginning and ending at the end. So my suggestion is stop picking wavelengths that have pattern that starts from the beginning and end at the end. Okay? Because if you do that, that's going to be a rare chance that it might happen. A rare scenario it might happen. It happened in history, but you can see out of the 4 past draws, this one starts at the beginning and ends at the end. This one starts not at the beginning, but starts somewhere in the middle and end at the end. This one also starts somewhere in the middle and ends at the end almost. And this one also starts at the beginning but doesn't end at the end. So you can see out all those 3 or 4 patterns of wavelength, only one wavelength starts from the beginning and ends at the end. So you don't want any wavelength to have short wavelengths, and you don't want any wavelength that starts at the beginning and ends at the end. Because that out of the 4 wavelengths, none of them starts, only one of them starts at the beginning and ends at the end. Now, thanks for watching my channel. Please do donate, share, like, follow me on Fope, watch my channel video I post, and I will try to make my videos more interesting, and I'll try to post more wavelengths patterns on other games. So this is the Mega Man wavelength.